I don't know how alive things were, but did you watch wrestling either live or on tape this past Saturday? Because AEW once again had both Dynamite and Rhodes to the Top on Saturday night.
I did. Have we finished with that? Saturday night, I think, is a bad influence on them. It's getting worse and worse. Are we going back to Wednesday nights now?
I believe so, at least for the next several weeks. I don't know if there's any other changes until the change to TBS in the future or in the new year. But I must admit, I actually kind of like it on Saturday night. But then again, I'm 41 at home with the kids running around the house, so I kind of liked it better than Wednesday night, having it on Saturday night.
Well, I mean, I don't really care which night of the week it is. It seems that Saturday night's a bad influence on these people because they had some shows going on, and then suddenly, boom, well, anyway. We'll save Rhodes to the Rotten because that was on afterwards. But yes, I did indeed. What was the date of this? There it is, October 23rd. We started off strong, and then we kind of now see here again. If I say we went downhill, is that good or bad?
I was saying that was bad. Your argument was that was good.
Well, but then it sounded horrible to say that Travis was going downhill, but it didn't sound proper to say that he was struggling uphill when he was getting better. So now, but this show was not getting better.
Where's Travis right now? He's on top of the hill.
True, he's on top of the mountain. Ooh, mercy. Anyway, so they opened up Dynamite with the World Championship. It's not even the World Championship tournament. It's a tournament for a chance at the World Championship. To be, is it going to be the number one contender or just this guy, whoever wins the tournament gets a title shot also?
I think it's an automatic title shot, is the way I took it.
It's an automatic title shot. One would think that would make you the number one contender, but you never know around here. Anyway, Bryan Danielson versus Dustin Rhodes. I am not going to argue that we actually got to see a good wrestling match on this program, except to just preface at the top, why? These guys, Bryan Danielson can have a good match with anybody. So can Dustin Rhodes pretty much. But these guys are both baby faces. The Bryan Danielson is brand new here. Why is he wrestling other baby faces? They did the same thing with Punk and Darby. They've got a fixation on bringing in new top baby faces and immediately making them fight other baby faces. So I knew this was going to be a good match, but I'm just like, oh, God damn it. And because it's another, if you have babyface versus babyface or heel versus heel every great once in a while, it's memorable. Pedro Bruno, Hogan Warrior, Midnight Horseman. But if they just do it every week like they do, it's blah, like it is. Anyway, great wrestling match. Dustin is in the best shape of his life. And how old is he now? He's got to be
50.
He started in 87. He's got to be older than that now. He's got to be, doesn't he? 34.
I'm checking 52.
There you go. They had a good match. It was nice work. There wasn't anything funny. They didn't bury the referee. They didn't do gymnastics routines. Bryan Danielson got his dive in, but it didn't look, like that wasn't just for nothing. They make their shit make sense. There was apparently one of the Harley Boys fans in the crowd with a big sign said, "I love twinks." I didn't see that later on. I don't know whether they got that one out of the way or not.
I didn't see that. I must admit.
Anyway, Danielson got heat. I put heat in quotation marks on Dustin. Nominally, he was in control of him. But since they're both baby faces, he was doing it legally and he was just in control. It wasn't really getting heat on him. But then Dustin hit that fucking power slam and a nice big move and got a 2 count. Made it a little bit of a comeback. They went back and forth. They had a nice little slugfest where it wasn't just, I'll stand here and let you hit me. They were actually trading blows. And then Dustin hit that pile driver out of nowhere pretty much and got a 2 count and it got a pop. They bought it. It seemed like the people almost bought that. or did buy it as a false finish, which would indicate how good the match was they were having, because the smartest crowd in the world, do you think anybody really deep down thought that Bryan Danielson was going to lose that match, but the guys in the match made him? See what I'm saying?
And I think that's one of the things that shows you how good Dustin is, because I think you could say that about almost every match. I don't remember any big Dustin wins in AEW, but I also remember him almost winning. I don't remember everything just being like a blowout. I don't remember any blowouts. I remember Dustin was close to beating Cody. Dustin was close to beating these other guys. So I agree.
Yeah, and then pretty much very soon after that, Danielson did the deal where he runs and jumps up into the guy's arms to front face lock him. It reminded me of when Adrian Street would do the deal with the kiss spot, where he'd jump up in the guy's arms, and the guy was so surprised he just caught him. But in this case, he obviously leaps up and hooks his head. And Dustin sagged because he's in the front face lock, and the referee called it. It was a good match. I hate that's a blasé finish to me, especially another baby face. And everybody wants to tap everybody out or choke everybody out these days. It's not only a bigger pop with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, and a more visual with a bump and a 1, 2, 3, but also with a baby face just in a cold match that was just put together gets choked out, then it takes some oomph away from when you want to do it for an angle with a top baby face. But I don't mind when guys whose gimmicks are shooters are tapping everybody out or whatever, but I wonder what the statistics are these days. How do more matches end? Some kind of submission hold, tap out, pass out versus 1, 2, 3. It would be close, wouldn't it?
I think so. I think that's one of the big influences of the UFC and MMA on wrestling.
What do you think the percentage was of submission versus pinfall in 1960, 70, 80, 90, or any time other than the last 20 years?
I think it's higher now than it's been in a generation or two.
But I mean, I think it honestly, as I'm trying to think back to when I was a fan, it would be 95-5 in favor of pinfalls versus submissions, because the only people that got submissions were guys that, you could have the heel with the backbreaker or the bear hug or whatever the fuck, and, that far back doing submissions. But really the only guys that had submissions were the select few baby faces that were technical wrestlers. Abdominal stretch, Vern Gagne with the sleeper, Wilbur Snyder with the abdominal stretch. Who am I missing of the classics?
And the other thing too is, they were different. There wasn't tapping out. And, when someone was a sleeper, the referee had to lift their arms. And for some reason, that was how you check if they were alive or not. It's the stupidest thing ever. But, is the claw hold technically a submission hold? Or do you consider it a pinning combination?
Well, in some cases, it was a pin because the guy would put the claw on and force the guy down, and his shoulders would be down, and the referee would count it. But in other territories, it would be just the guy would go limp and they'd stop it. So it depends. But I guess what I'm saying is that it was used sparingly. Again, something else used sparingly in wrestling so that it made an impact when it happened. And now it's just, okay, I guess it's not as bad now because nobody needs people need an out, but nobody thinks they need an out anymore, especially a babyface out or a heel bitch. Whenever top guys lost in those days, especially by submission, the heel either had a bitch or the babyface had an out. And now nobody bothers to give either one of those people that thing. So it's just flat. Anyway.
But in this case, though, they are telling a little bit of a story, which is that since he arrived in AEW, Danielson has won every match in a different manner. No finishing maneuver, multiple different maneuvers that could finish you, including being choked out. So for that reason, I think it worked. to your overall thought.
Did it have to be a babyface that they picked to have him choke out, or couldn't he just have beat the babyface 1, 2, 3 with a snazzy wrestling move?
I mean,
if you beat a babyface, if one babyface beats another babyface with a snazzy wrestling move, and they can get up and shake hands, there you go. But if one of the babyfaces, I'm just saying, you would have had, if you got main event babyfaces in any territory, in any period in wrestling together, and said, you're going to go over the guy doing a job. Do you want to fucking give up, or you want to get pinned? They would have taken, I'll get pinned. Anyway, go ahead.
I mean, that was my big thing. I think the big thing coming out of the match was Danielson getting the win with a different maneuver, this one being a choke. I don't have a problem with it. I think Dustin's the kind of guy there who's bulletproof in a sense, because he's not going to go past a certain point, and he's also not going to go below a certain point. And he can have sympathy with the audience. He doesn't lose anything. And to the same reasoning that there are more submissions now because there are more people who grew up watching MMA, watching UFC, and studying Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think it's the same thing with if you're in a dojo and you choke out your sparring partner, when you're done, you lift him up, you hug him, you make sure he's okay. So I think there is a little bit of more of a relatability there with some of these guys.
I'm not saying they should want to kill each other afterwards. I'm saying I see this with matches all the time. They have a lot of, and we'll talk about probably one here in a second. They have a lot of interference. They have a lot of gaga going on, but then in some way they still manage to, whoever does the job manages to get beat flat clean in blah, instead of somehow has a gripe if he's a heel or an out if he's a babyface. But there we go. Did you see the next interview after that? Which is an excellent match, by the way. I don't want people to think that I'm knocking the match, and both those guys can work. I just wonder sometimes, why can't a babyface come in the company, a top guy, and just start beating some heels instead of having to wrestle everybody on the roster, because it'll be a good match. You split. Well, I guess really you don't split the audience, because these people don't cheer for anybody to win. They just cheer for people to do shit. But in the old days, again, the previous 100 years before now, if you had two baby faces wrestling, you're splitting your audience, and you don't want to do that.
All right.
Now, did you see the next interview where excrement in all his glory, it was, of course, with the Elite, excrement pitched it to Kenny Omega.
I did hear that.
Kenny Omega. I wanted to see Twinkle Toes dressed up like a fucking big Samoan, right? Kenny Umaga. So Twinkle Toes did the 1-800 blow me, line voice, and the rest of them joked around. No, nothing new. They did a package on FTR and Tully and being the new AAA tag team champions. But of course they want the Lucha Brothers real belts. God, those AAA tag team title belts look horrible. But they want the Lucha Brothers real belts at Full Gear. At least we get to see another match between them. They worked the magic with the Lucha Brothers and actually got them to have a match where they didn't really bury the referee or just do crazy shit. I loved it. Who was it? It was Cash that said we've watched, or was it Dax? Cash said that we've watched kids cosplaying as champions long enough, or something like that, right?
Everyone's using the word cosplay now with wrestling.
Well, only where it fits. Some trailblazer started it and it seemed apropos, so other people have fallen, in line with it. And then Penthouse and Alex rebutted, and Alex does a great promo. And then when he said, and Alex says, because he's gonna get even for the black eye, his face looked great. I don't know who they had do his face, but it looked great.
If you listen to Alex and close your eyes, tell me it doesn't sound like a heel Mike Tenay.
Yes, that's where I've heard that voice. It didn't even register until now. I swear, he has the tonal quality of Mike Tenay trying to get stern.
But it works.
Trying to get stern, but getting stern.
Yeah, it works.
And yes, if you closed your eyes, I think Mike still may be a better looking young man, but anyway, it's nice to see that. What's the matter with you?
That was an awkward pause there after the comment.
I was looking to see what was next on the show here. I'm referring to my notes since I can't memorize this shit. It comes and goes so fast. Oh, I know. I shouldn't. It was the time for the weather report next. Sting was next. Tony Schiavone in the ring. Blackout, snow, Sting. Oh, why have I never even either? I've never noticed this before, or it's never happened before. I can't figure out how it couldn't have happened before. When Sting got in the ring, he still had the packing peanuts in his hair, the fake snow. And has that happened before and I've missed it? Because how, I guess, would you, or did he just forget to fucking fluff his head when he got in the ring this time?
I don't know.
Did you see it?
I didn't notice it, but
you didn't notice it?
It makes sense that it would land in his head.
Yeah, but
on his head.
Once he got in the ring and he's standing there, that's all I can look at is he's got the dyed black hair with the fucking fake styrofoam snow in it. It looked ridiculous.
I just kept thinking how this guy was Mr. Surf and Sun, Surfer Sting. I never saw him in a North Face jacket. Now all of a sudden, every time he comes, there's a blizzard.
What? But because wait a minute, didn't he go to the Arctic Circle to find Vader in 1993 in the fucking House of Ice, the Fortress of Solitude, or whatever?
The White Castle of Fear.
White Castle of Fear. Yes. where a lot of us we were obviously in Smoky Mountain at the time, not WCW, but we were watching the TV, and a lot of us were thinking the people at White Castle would be scared to fucking death if Vader walked in. Because they know he'd order every slider in the place.
And by the way, how stupid are White Castle? All they had to do was threaten to sue, and Turner would have given him so much money.
Yes.
That's all they had to do was threaten to sue.
But anyway, you'll never guess what happened in this interview here because Tony Schiavone asked Sting a question, and before he said a word, someone interrupted. And it was MJF, thank goodness.
How about that heel pop for his music? They boo right away, instantly.
I know, yes. They automatically reckon it, and also they knew, well, okay, Sting had his chance. He's not going to get a word in edgewise now. And he came out on the stage, MJF, pronouns pal, MJF came out on the stage and did the verbal masterclass as usual, but he started speaking from the entrance. Maybe someone's listening because he wasn't standing there, or maybe Sting, being a veteran, being a person who's been in this position for 30-something years, said, I wouldn't stand there and let him berate me if he was 2 feet in front of me, but if he's talking from that far away and he's moving slowly toward me, then I can wait and let him get to the punchline, because that's what they did. MJF said horrible things about everybody. Darby is not coming back. He's broken Darby. The people in Florida solved their problems with gun violence and incest, which was fucking great. He told Sting it was his fault that Darby's in the, same spot as your buddy Lex Luger. And people are, ooh.
Yeah, they had a big reaction.
Yes. And then, but then when he didn't say anything else, but by then he's on the apron. So they assumed in their heads that, because that's a smart fan crowd. So they know that Lex is in a wheelchair now. But he had said all that with Sting standing in the ring boiling. And when he steps through the ropes, he comes right up to him and says, in a wheelchair, and step, boom. That was perfect timing.
That's right.
Because Sting didn't have to stand there and have his parentage questioned and his fucking children maligned and his dog verbally kicked and everything and do nothing about it until they got to the punchline. Punchline. No pun intended. Boom, perfect timing, and Sting's all over MJF, but here comes Wardlow and Shawn Spears. And Sting fights back. I know he's been doing this for years, but I hate the backhands. I like it when he whips his leather coat off and fucking whacks people over the head with it, because that's motion and that's chaos. And you can, if you take a fucking 20-pound leather coat and fucking whip it over your head at somebody, they're going to fucking put their hands up. I mean, it's motion, but the backhands, I think they're almost, what do you think? Seriously, does that break up the flow of the thing with you saying, what the fuck with that backhand and everybody's got to sell it?
Not necessarily, just because he's been doing it so long. We're used to him doing it, so it gets a better reaction than Joe Schmo.
Yeah, or Tits McGee. But then Sean Spears clips Sting with the chair, and then after he clips him with the chair, he Paul Bunyans him 5 more times. Now, of course, it wasn't like the young folks hit each other. He had control of the chair, and he wasn't trying to do spinal damage. But do you need to just beat somebody into powder over and over? Anybody with these chairs? It was on the Crown Jewel. Somebody took 7 or 8, I think. But anyway. So now Sting is down, and MJF puts his suit jacket back on, and he sits in the chair, and he berates Sting, who's laying at his feet, and Darby watching at home. And this was, do you know what the only thing wrong with this last fucking bit of business was?
No.
Again, nobody trying to stop it. Nobody trying to get in the ring. Nobody trying to... It went on long enough, and they've got Sting beaten and helpless. Wouldn't some friend of his in the locker room, wouldn't Tony Khan, the benevolent Tony Khan, say, referees, stop this carnage? Or do we have security down at ringside? Our T-shirt fellows. And all they needed to do was have people trying. You've got a heel in the ring with a chair. You got another heel in the fucking ring that's a goddamn pro wrestler, and you've got MJF with his fucking diamond ring and his. You can play King of the Hill. Well, you can play King of the Hill with some of the underneaths of the referees or some T-shirt security, while that fucking MJF is still saying and doing the things that he's saying and doing. He doesn't have to sit there and do it quite so calmly, no urgency, but he can tell the fucking guy off. And fucking then, Wardlow, look how big Wardlow is, for fuck's sake. So you came in to tell me that for 30 seconds, the other two could keep anybody from getting in the ring while MJF says his piece, pulls out his ring, pickles Sting in the fucking face, and then here comes enough troops that they bail and off they go. But I guess it's only people who have been watching wrestling just for the last 10 or 15 years that think that there's nothing unusual or odd about this, that nobody should be trying to stop it, that the bell shouldn't be ringing, that there shouldn't be referees or wrestlers, the babyface, anybody. But to me, that's the most distracting thing. This would not be happening like this without someone trying to stop it, which not only builds the entire sense of urgency in your whole scenario and your whole visual that you're creating, but also lends it legitimacy. The people in the building. That's how we used to be able to get people come over the rail, because the people in the building could see other people trying and failing to prevent this shit from going on and feel like they had to take it upon themselves. But the people here in the building see, well, there's the announcers sitting at their desk calling it. Cameramen are shooting it. Nobody's trying to stop it. This is obviously a setup, sports entertainment happening, a skit, a play. And that's why they can't get legitimate heat out of it, because there's nothing to lose yourself in. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, you know what it's like when some real fucking mark or somebody tries to hit the ring that is not supposed to. You see people whipping headsets off and fucking t-shirt guys going for them and the referee making a beeline.
In a perfect world, you can get a cop or two. Yeah.
Yes. But no, so it was just, it's another skit that they're doing in the show. Well performed, but there's no urgency.
I can't disagree with what you just said. I think it would have improved it. But with that said, I thought it was a great segment. We said they really needed to do something to build the heat beyond just jumping Darby. This may have been it.
Yes.
I hope they keep Darby away from TV until Full Gear. I know that's a few weeks away. But based on this and based on everything and the whole thing's about MJF beating him down mentally, keep him off TV and then bring him back and just don't lock up. just fucking wipe him out with a dive and kick some ass and have a kick-ass match. I'm intrigued to see this match. These are two guys that I think should work really well together. And I thought this was a good segment and a good angle, and of course not the last we would see of MJF and Wardlow and crew on this episode.
Well, and I don't want anybody to think that I'm complaining now that MJF got to lay out Sting, the veteran icon. No, that's fine. I'm just saying when you're doing something like this, and you know, I would say I don't know why Sting didn't speak up, but I don't think Sting particularly gives a fuck about these details. But if they're doing something that's so good like this, how many times has Sting been laid out and beaten up? And that's one thing they've stayed away from. So that means something. And MJF, a guy who can get verbal heat like that and people are predisposed maybe to dislike anyway, that's a perfect guy to do it with. That's why I want to make it as see-through or as not see-through as possible. As I want to make it as good as possible. You want to make it as fucking impactful as possible instead of people being able to see flaws in the logic or not create your entire chaotic atmosphere. The only time they create chaotic atmospheres on this program where it looks like that people are just willy-nilly going into business for themselves and making shit up is in the goddamn stupid matches they have instead of the fucking angles. The matches, it oftentimes, well, you know with who I'm talking about, the Hardley Boys and their crew, that looks like they're just making shit up on the fly, obviously cooperating with everybody to do it, but it looks completely unplanned. Well, this shit, the angles look planned, and it should be the other way around. Anyway. But I'm like you. I'm with you. I want to see MJF and Darby Allin.
It should be good. And of course, if Darby misses Sting, if he thinks, oh my God, here I am in seclusion, hiding from MJF, hiding from Plainview, Long Island. I wish I had something to remember Sting by. Of course, he could get a wonderful oil painting of himself and Sting during happier times.
Well, you know, that's exactly correct. And I can see it now. I can see it hanging up on the wall. Maybe even they painted on black velvet. And all that beautiful snow falling. And there's Darby Allin and his Uncle Sting riding a horse-drawn carriage across a snow-filled field to Grandma's house.
Maybe you shouldn't say Uncle. Maybe you shouldn't use Uncle.
Uncle Sting?
Darby just told a story about it. He was driving with his uncle.
Oh, well, Sting, hey, he's sober these days, and you can't drive a. Well, no, you can't drive a horse-drawn carriage while you're drinking. Well, that's not right. But folks, if you'd like to have yourself painted in a carriage or anywhere else, the folks at Paint Your Life can do it for you. We have talked about them so much here on the program over the last few years, and we've had so many of the reader and viewer and listener testimonials that they got the paintings of their family and put different generations together, or people who were never in the same place at the same time, or a cherished pet, or a lost loved one, whatever the case. The folks at Paint Your Life can take any photograph or combination of pictures and put them together and make a beautiful, professional, hand-painted portrait. As I said, it can be children, family, special place, pet, combine people into one painting. With the compilation portraits, you can bring together family members from different generations or from across the world so you can reunite people that haven't seen each other or maybe never saw each other. There's no limit to the things you can do. All you need to do is just imagine this. Anyway, you can order a custom-made hand-painted portrait in less than 5 minutes, and you can get it in about 3 weeks from their team of world-class artists. It makes the perfect holiday gift, and we're coming up on the holidays. So for heaven's sake, get a painting of yourself and a turkey for Thanksgiving. And remember that turkey forever. Whatever you want to do, they'll do it for you. Folks, at paintyourlife.com, there's not only no limits, there's no risk. If you don't love the final painting, your money is refunded guaranteed. And as a limited time offer, you can now get 20% off and free shipping when you text the word DRIVE, D-R-I-V-E, to 64,000. That's DRIVE to 64000. That's 3 zeros on there. DRIVE to 64,000. Brian, paint your life. Celebrate the moments and turkeys that matter most.
Terms apply. Gobble, gobble, gobble. But anyway, Jim, let's move on here with the show. And of course, back to Dynamite.
Back to Dynamite. Well, we had a brief interlude. Penelope Ford wrestled Ruby Soho. And I'm just wondering now if they can have a new faction. This is going to be perfect. Brian, are you ready for this?
I don't think so. Please don't say whatever it is you're going to say. I don't even know what you're going to say. Please don't say anything.
Oh, a new faction in AEW. Soho, Solo, Comarato, a Go-Go. Soho's perfect for Solo, okay. Comarato, and a Go-Go.
That wasn't bad at all. I had the worst. I thought you were going to do the worst.
I was going to put you in the toilet, in the sewer. You thought I was going to just have
I thought that was going to be the name of the faction, actually, the sewer, and you were going to just start naming people. I was afraid of where you were going.
But anyway, so Penelope Pitstop wrestled Ruby Soho. And then we got to see MJF and Spears and Wardlow in the back. And now Wardlow brings up, hey, what was that shit last week shoving me into Sting? And MJF was blowing it all. Oh, man, I had the fight or flight instinct. We know which one he picked. And he blew it off, but he's assigned Shawn Spears to be. So apparently FTR have managed to get out and do their own thing now. And Spears and Wardlow are going to be MJF flunkies, and I can't particularly argue with that.
I think they're still aligned. Remember last week you rented them out to Andrade.
Well, but at the same time, FTR and Tully had their own package. They're not going to be hanging around in the background while interplay goes on between Wardlow and MJF and Spears is involved. Now that would make it busy, and FTR would be spare pricks at the wedding in this interaction. So hopefully it's not going to be like they all have to be together all the time. FTR can do their own thing.
I don't think the Pinnacle ever broke up, so I think they're all going to be somehow aligned with each other going forward.
Well, at least they weren't standing back there while all this went on. But basically, Shawn Spears has been assigned to Wardlow to be his accountability buddy. So apparently the MJF on Long Island is watching South Park as well. But now I guess I'm starting to like this, because before it was just an odd comment every so often from MJF to Wardlow, like, hey, dummy, and Wardlow wouldn't say anything. And remember, I said if you keep on browbeating the flunky that the people want to rebel for so long without him doing anything, then they don't really care. And they started it. It was too soon. It was over a year ago. It was goddamn 3 weeks after Wardlow showed up, wasn't it? They started teasing dissension. And then they left off of it for a long time.
Yeah.
Now, if they're back to it, okay, and if Wardlow's going to be saying some things, and if they've got Spears in the middle of it, then at least you don't have to. When they break MJF and Wardlow up, Wardlow can get over with Shawn Spears. He can beat the shit out of Spears, and it's not going to take any heat off MJF. So it's because I was afraid if they rushed the turn and Wardlow's a babyface, then they're going to have him beating up MJF, which would be way too quick and not a thing to do. So now there's some more moving parts to this. I'm willing to see where it goes. What about you?
We'll see where it goes. It's funny, though, the whole time I'm watching this, I'm saying, you know what? Spears with that cap on looks more serious. When you don't see his goofy head of hair, because he can't pull off the mohawk and look tough. I'm not saying he isn't tough in real life or whatever. He just doesn't look it with the mohawk. He looks ridiculous.
Yeah, he looks like a fucking Native American Baron von Raschke.
Like T.J. Khan had a kid. I mean, I don't know what the fuck that look is. But with the cap on, I'm thinking, oh, he looks serious. Maybe this is going to be like a shift and they'll make him a little more serious. And then right at the end, he makes the goofy face to Wardlow. I'm like, oh, no, he's still a goof.
Yeah, but it's somebody for Wardlow to beat up eventually.
Yeah, so I mean, it seems like they're doing it sooner rather than later. It's been more frequent recently. Usually when the ground starts moving a little bit more, you're waiting for the big one to happen. Seems like it's going to happen soon.
Well, next on the Parade of Terror was it's Bobby Fish, who I'm a big fan of, against Anthony Green, who I'm not a big fan of. I don't care if he can wrestle or not. Have you ever seen a worse looking, worse dressed, worse haircut, worst physical specimen looking plain, bland? They've been cleaning up homeless camps here in Louisville. I've seen it on the news. I think I saw Anthony Green getting booted out of a cardboard box. He just looked like a bum. What were those pants about? So, anyway, Bobby Fish got a good win. That's lovely. I wish they'd have a little bit more standards about the appearance of the job guys they use on national television than using the guys that are 140 pounds or dressed in a goddamn Salvation Army drop box or haven't seen sunlight in years or whatever. But anyway, this was just an excuse, this match, to get Punk out. Because obviously Bobby Fish won, thankfully, and then went back and got heat afterwards on this guy, which was just a manufactured reason for CM Punk to come out and make the save. But thankfully, did you notice he hit the ring and made the save first, and then they started playing his music when you saw him in the ring? He didn't wait for he's closing up the logic loopholes in run-ins now. He's everywhere. He's like a wrestling doctor for this company. He has the right demeanor, whether he's for coming out for an interview or for a match or this stuff for a save. The shit doesn't happen, sports entertainment style where the music plays and everybody gets to pop and then he comes out, nice friend you are, waiting for your fucking music before you go out and help this guy. And do you know why they did this right there?
Why they did this segment right there?
Did you notice why they had to milk the heat on Anthony Green by Bobby Fish maybe a little bit longer than you might have gone for that situation? Did you notice why?
No, tell me.
This was a sly one. Right at the top of the 9 o'clock hours when Punk hit the ring. So even though they didn't have him in a match or even advertised in some way, people switching around after their 8 to 9 o'clock show was over with, and Vince taught me this 20-something years ago with Raw, you would always at the top of the hour have one of your main stars in the ring or doing something. So Punk's run-in came at the top of the 9 o'clock hour, and right as people would be switching by, they heard, like Mussolini! And they saw CM Punk in the ring. And then they focused, they kept the camera on him, and they milked the stare down with him and Fish. And they kept the camera on Punk as he left the ring because they got 2 minutes at the top of the hour of CM Punk on television. That was smart. Of course, then the rest of the show sucked, but they might have hooked somebody.
When this was starting, I kind of groaned because I have not been a fan of Bobby Fish as a singles wrestler. And here he is wrestling another guy who's just off NXT TV with a different name, obviously.
Was he on
I think he was
on NXT.
I think he was. Hold on, I'm pretty sure he was. What's his name? Anthony Green. That's
Anthony Green. Did he wear those pants on NXT?
August Gray.
Oh my God! Because he was involved in a deal, I think, and whatever happened, by the way, to poor Timothy Thatcher.
Yeah, that's another good question. I have no idea.
August Gray was involved in something, and I said, this guy is the worst fucking bland, putrid, outlaw-looking fucking guy. And he went and got worse-looking pants and became Anthony Green. Go ahead.
But I'm seeing this like, oh, here are two guys off NXT TV, and I'm not too excited about it. And I got to admit, I was wrong because I thought Bobby Fish looked fantastic here. He was kicking ass.
I love Bobby Fish.
And Anthony Green did his stuff, and it was quick. It was in and out. He really didn't get too much in. Bobby Fish destroyed him. I was thinking after this, wow, I wonder what they're going to do with Bobby Fish. I saw they announced the official he signed. He's all elite. He's not going to do anything with Cole, it looks like. What are they going to do with him? And then Punk comes out, and I'm like, I could go for that match.
Yeah.
I could really go for that. And like you said, he hit the ring without the music. So there was the confusion, the pop that slowly grew when people realized it was him.
Yeah.
The chanting, and then the music.
Yes.
And I liked that, and I thought it was good, and he had intensity, and I want to see him and Bobby Fish. I really like this segment a lot.
And imagine that. They established that Fish is a heel by beating up the poor, overmatched fellow after the match so that somebody needed to come out and stop that type of activity. And goddamn, it's just... Suddenly, wrestling angles break out every once in a while in the middle of this show. But we'll fix that because we go to the back with. Have they fired every single interviewer they ever had?
Yeah, because
now
Dasha?
Tony's everywhere. I'm not arguing about Bar Brady. Mark Henry's gone. Dasha's gone.
Where's Dasha?
Is there something I need to know about you and Dasha?
I'm just a fan of her work. I think she's the best ring announcer they have and the best backstage interviewer they have.
Well, they don't have her anymore, apparently, because now Tony's everywhere.
She doesn't do shtick with Britt Baker. I like her better.
But Tony was with Leo Rush and Dante Martin, and Leo Rush has decided that he's got to mentor and teach Dante Martin, because Matt Sydal didn't do that. And they've got a tag team match next week against the Sydals. And Leo did all the talking except for one line that Dante recited. Leo Rush can talk, and he's got oomph, and he's got personality. I hate him trying to be a wrestler because he's microscopic. I've said before, he could be $1 million manager with that line of bullshit and that slappable face. I don't know where this is going. Dante Martin is an amazing physical performer in the ring, and standing around on an interview, he looks like a defendant about to be arraigned. I've never seen a blander, more disinterested, humble, shy, quiet. Did I mention bland?
Well, I think the reason he looks like he's about to be arraigned, as you put it, is because there's some sort of weird tension with him and Leo. It hasn't been completely defined yet.
There's no tension between he was standing there like he was fucking about to be sentenced to fucking Rikers Island, and he had his head down, and the way he recited that memorized one sentence, they got to get that fella in some. A lot of these young guys, you would think they act like this in person. You would think that they have no personalities, because here is the chance to show any personality you've got. And yeah. So I don't know if they're thinking Leo's got double, so he'll make up for it. But we never. Is he going to quit the business next week again? Who knows what the fuck he's going to do?
I hope not. I like Leo. I actually like Leo Rush. And again, I know you don't like him in the ring, and I understand your reasons. And thankfully in AEW, there are some guys small enough in stature that it wouldn't look ridiculous him being in there in this flyweight division or whatever it may be. But it hit me watching this, and you may not get the reference. Did you ever see The Last Dragon? With Bruce Leroy battling Shonuff, the Shogun of Harlem?
Okay, apparently I've missed that one.
apparently you missed one of the greatest movies of all time.
Okay.
Anyone who's within a few years of my age who doesn't love that movie, I don't need to have anything to do with you ever. He's a heel version of the little brother in The Last Dragon. Leo Rush is a heel version of Richie from The Last Dragon. Everyone who knows that movie will know what I'm talking about. I think Leo Rush is really good. Again, I wasn't buying the whole leverage buyout thing.
I think he's dropped that.
It's not as
said it the past
over
day
the
or
top.
past week or two, right?
Yeah. And I actually, even though I'm not as big a fan of the high-flying style as others, I like Dante Martin because he does things a little differently. Leo Rush, if he's in there with guys similar in size, let's see. And Matt Seidel's not a big guy either. I don't even remember what his brother looks like, to be quite honest with you.
How big a boy is his brother? He's about the same size.
So, yeah, I am interested to see where they're going. I think it's all to build up to the brother of Dante Martin's return, the other brother in this whole thing. There's a lot of brothers in AEW. The Seidel brothers, the Jackson brothers, the Martin brothers, the Rhodes brothers, and keep going on and on.
The Smothers brothers.
The Smothers
brothers.
That's right.
Brother. Well, should we move on to the match that everybody was talking about? And by the way, hopefully Lance Archer is okay. He's put out a statement and appeared coherent. All the words were in the proper order. But geez, money, Pete, I like Lance. I worked with him in TNA, 10, 15 years ago. He's a great guy. We've said he's got a lot of talent, but they've had him doing the stupid stuff, which we're going to talk about in a second. I don't want to just bury him right off the top since he just landed on his head and nearly broke his neck. And it's not burying him. It's just burying the people that are allowing him to do this or telling him to do this. But I've said before, just because you can cut your own ear off doesn't make you Van Gogh. And just because you can do a moonsault or whatever move doesn't mean you should. And with Lance being taller and heavier and a more legitimate, badass-looking guy than almost everybody on this roster, you can take him seriously as somebody who would do some damage to someone. Why is he doing moonsaults? And why is he being forced to or being allowed to, whichever one, make himself phony almost every time he appears before he gets a chance to do his shit? He's made himself a fucking phony goof by beating up a supposed fan that everybody knows is not a fan. And or a cameraman or whatever. Remember, we've seen it. Just throw away stuff. He'll grab somebody and bring him over the rail that's supposed to be a fan, or he'll attack a cameraman and choke slam him, and then go right on with their match, and nothing is done. There's no repercussions. It's fucking ridiculous. And again, in front of the smartest audience to begin with, probably in wrestling. Did you see him pull the fan over the rail? And then they started using the fan as a foreign object?
I almost thought it was a woman at first.
Well, I'm not saying it was a manly man fan.
Well, I'm just saying at first I was like, oh my God, is that a woman? And it took
Somebody said it looked just like one of the Mulkeys because of the blonde hair and the pink shirt. But by the way, we haven't even mentioned this was another tournament match for the shot at the World Championship, which is already a joke because, as we know, our little dog Pockets won his first round match in this tournament over Powerhouse Hobbs Friday night. So it's a joke tournament. So they jump-started in the aisleway before the introductions, and they're fighting around ringside. And okay, it's Archer and Kingston. If anybody's going to do that, then that would be Archer and Kingston. And Moxley, obviously. Moxley can't do anything else. But then suddenly Archer supposedly reaches over the rail and grabs allegedly a fan and picks him up and gives him a scoop slam onto Eddie Kingston on the floor. And Excrement had to say, oh, he's grabbed that fan. He's grabbed that fan. If you noted, JR never said a goddamn word. And then as this thing started going on, The only reference that JR made to the guy at all was, I don't know who this blonde guy is. Because what else is he going to say? If he says that's a fan, then Jim Ross is just a fucking phony bullshit shill, just like excrement and everybody else on his program in the fans' eyes. JR knew he could not call that guy a fan. Because after the full scoop slam, then Archer brings the fucking fan into the ring. Remember when they had a goddamn brain aneurysm collectively all at the same time when some fat schlub from Des Moines or wherever jumped up on the ring apron when Jericho was in the ring?
Oh yeah, that was one of the last times they tried to cancel you.
Everybody leaped into action. The doctor was going for the guy. The referee Jericho went for the guy after the guy was neutralized. Everybody in sight's going for this guy. Well, now Lance Archer has dragged a fan over the rail, scoop slammed him on the floor on top of his opponent, then brought the fan in the ring, set him up on the apron of the ring, and choke slams the fan off the ring onto Eddie Kingston on the floor. No security, no chaos. Well, chaos of that type, but no legitimate activity like, oh my God, what's he doing? One of their announcers, thankfully the one that nobody takes seriously anyway, called him a fan. Jim Ross, the voice of the modern wrestling generation, knew better than fucking get to shit on his face and just blew it off. And then they fought on the floor for a second more and got in the ring, and the referee rang the bell to start the match. Brian, if one of the wrestlers legitimately really has attacked one of the fans in the front row, brought him in, slammed him, choke slammed him, and etc., is the referee going to call for the bell to start the match after that?
Only if a random person makes it a three-way all of a sudden.
Well, there you go. Just bring the fucking fan in and make it a three-way. So what they did was phony and rotten and is bad indie-style shoot angle bullshit. And these two guys could have had and did end up having, until what happened, a nice hard-hitting match. You know, they're badasses, blah, blah, blah. But they've made it phony, stupid, and meaningless because they killed it before they started it with this fucking ridiculous bullshit that nobody believed, that everybody could see through, didn't make any sense. And even if they're trying to work a shoot, then the work of the shoot was rotten because nothing in that scene looked like it would look if that was really happening. So they failed in that recreation. So I don't know how people can say, oh, wow, you know, everybody knows wrestling's bullshit. So, Cornette, what are you talking about? Does that mean that because we know it's bullshit that we should not then at all make any effort to try to make it look legitimate? If it's working, they're not working well because it looked phony on the face of it. Anyway, so they had a match. And then Lance Archer did a moonsault and landed right on the top of his head. And I'm glad he was okay. I can't see how that did, from that height and his weight didn't break his neck. He rolled out to the floor. The doctor checks on him. The referee's asking him. Eddie Kingston standing there with his thumb in his ass. What else is he going to do? And then Archer rolls back in the ring, and Eddie Kingston rolls him up, beats him with a wrestling move. Of all people. Why didn't the referee stop it? For fuck's sake. The guy that was unable to continue was the one who was going to lose anyway. Right?
Right. And once the referee was down there, the longer he was down there, the more I kept thinking, oh, he's about to stop it. He has to. But he didn't.
When George Foreman knocked out Joe Frazier, the first time that Frazier hit the fucking mat, right? And did the referees say, okay, hold on. We'll stop this. George, roll out, or Joe, roll out. Take a fucking minute. Get your shit together, because we gotta finish the fight. No, if it's a fight, it was finished. The guy can't continue. It's not like in the fiasco between Owen Hart and Steve Austin, Austin had to win. The guy that was paralyzed was supposed to win. So there was some, oh shit, what do we do? But in this case, everybody knew the fucking finish. If he's going to goddamn lose anyway, stop the fucking match. Even if he's not going to lose, he just landed on his head. You can't just say, oh, okay, we're going to stop this fake stage fight that we're having because somebody actually just really got hurt. Because that's what they did. So I don't understand in what world that nobody just said, Tony Khan, back in the back at the gorilla position, didn't just say, ring the bell and stop it. Can't continue. That's a better out for Lance Archer. He was trying, they say he was trying to finish the match and mad because they wouldn't let him finish it. So he'd rather get beaten 1, 2, 3 by Eddie Kingston than beat himself and have an out. Then he gets at any time in the future, I should have won that tournament, but I beat myself and Kingston advanced. That's a better finish than fucking just beating goddamn for Archer. It's a better finish than just Eddie Kingston's going to roll him up 1, 2, 3. Fuck, does anybody think about these things anymore? Oh my God, what'd you think?
I mean, I don't know what else to add to that. Not my favorite style of match. I like Kingston. Haven't been crazy about Archer. Although there have been moments where I've enjoyed him. I don't know where Jake is. I'm going to guess he's not going to be around. And then the moonsault. And I mean, it's easy to dissect it afterwards and say, oh, he should never have done it. And I know what you think, and you've been consistent. And, you know, I start thinking it afterwards. Oh, why is he doing it? And then you think, oh, he's done it so many times. I at first thought he actually kind of, it sounds so stupid, but on the first time I watched it, I thought he protected himself with his hands somewhat. And I know that's such a silly thought when, like you said, his weight, the height, how far up he was.
Well, he got his hands in there because
right,
if you go back and watch it in slow motion, and I mean his hands definitely touched, but his hands were in position. If he had rotated all the way, he was trying to protect his face with his hands because he was envisioning he was going to land flat on his stomach. The hands being there did something, but if you watch, the first thing that touched before the hands was the head. And it was fucking awkward. Go ahead.
What I was going to say was in regards to what to do there. I mean, that's the interesting thing. Is it the referee's job? Does someone tell the referees? The referee's supposed to know right away what to do? Does someone need to tell the referee? What would have been the perfect way for this to be handled?
Obviously, the referee, unless he saw somebody fall on a chair leg and they were impaled or something, right? The referee would obviously be checking with the guy to see if he was okay, see if he was coherent. You know where you are you okay, whatever, so that he could give a signal in the back, because if Tony Khan's the guy, running this show, then he's on headset and he would be asking, is he all right? And then, to me, when it goes so far as that Lance has to roll out of the ring and get his shit back together, which he did.
Yeah, that's the point for me. That's the point.
At that point, then if I'm Tony Khan, I know who's winning, and I know not what the finish. I know what the finish is supposed to be, what they've gone over, but I also know the end result, who's supposed to win, and I'm going to tell the fucking referee in his headset, stop it, and declare he can't continue. Then the worst thing that happens is Archer immediately regains his wits and he gets in the ring and he pitches a bitch, and maybe they do some impromptu fucking fisticuffs. That's the worst thing that can happen. You got your proper winner and you didn't leave that awkward spot where everybody goes, oh, he's really hurt. And now they don't know what to do. And if If Archer's not okay, then you've stopped it and you've prevented him from he just landed on his head. Even though the roll up that Eddie Kingston gave him, the old Oklahoma side roll there, that wasn't going to hurt anybody that didn't have a broken neck. But if he had a broken neck and he just got kind of rolled up on his neck, that might fucking fuck the broken neck up worse. You don't know what the fuck at that point. So that's why I say if I think Tony Khan should have been the one to say, fuck it, call it, he can't continue, and err on the side of safety, because you know what the finish is going to be to begin with. It's not like it's like that SummerSlam match, as I said, with Owen and Austin, where that would have fucked up some major plans.
I have something here that was sent to me. This is from the Wrestling Observer website. It was noted that it was Doc Sampson who told Archer to go straight to the finish, despite Archer wanting to keep going, and Archer was upset backstage after the match. Archer did not have a concussion and was able to pass all the tests backstage.
But go straight to the finish? Okay.
Is that what the doctor's job is, to order you to
No. The doctor's job should be to administer the tests and determine whether or not that the guy's got a concussion or not. That's the doctor's job. But if you think there's a issue, if the guy's bell is rung so bad that he can't continue, and him losing is the finish you're going for anyway. The point that I'm making is it was just awkward and phony to have all that go on and then him get back in the ring and Eddie Kingston use a roll-up that he's never used before and probably never use again. And that couldn't have been the finish that they planned. So he didn't go straight to the finish. He just go straight to getting pinned. And then you can leave so we can determine whether or not you'll be paralyzed. Well, I don't fucking know what's going on here. The point is, I'm offended in two different ways. I'm offended because the guy could have been hurt and hurt worse. And I'm offended because it made the match and everything involved with it look phony. Because in the UFC, in pro boxing, in wrestling down through the years, when has a guy obviously been unable to continue and his opponent just stands there and the referee said, well, let's give him all the time he needs? What? That's not the idea. You lose a fight when you can't continue. If you can't get back up, it's not that fucking hard. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
I can't get past the idea the doctor didn't say, let's stop it. He said, go to the finish. Although I remember all those amazing times that Dr. George Zaharian booked from ringside in Allentown. And of course, Dr. Schwartz in LA decided to, on the fly, change the finish of Blassie Tolis. That's a known story. How could the doctor say? That's the thing that gets me. After that, you call the match. You can't send him back in the ring.
I don't know. I don't understand it. But we hope Lance is all right. And that's the thing. They've already had a broken neck. Starks. Remember Starks? What was it? What was the move? Goddamn.
Adam Page threw him over his head, I think. Yes,
the German suplex. Starks landed on his fucking head. And at the time we did the review, I said, my God, it looked like he landed right on top of his head and he bounced right up to his feet and didn't even sell it as long as you would sell a regular German suplex. And it looked like it almost killed him. And then we come to find out that it did, that it broke his neck, and that's why he was out. And so they know already these guys are landed on their fucking heads. And this Lance's looked worse than Starks's did. And it broke Starks's neck. And he was out for 2 or 3 months or whatever it was.
Oh, I didn't think so. I thought the way Starks landed looked worse than Lance.
No, but this is a heavier guy coming from farther up.
Yeah, the other one, we just saw the neck bend in half.
I don't know. Well, the point is, I don't want to be doing either of those things. So I don't, but we've established that you can break something in your neck. Starks did that. You can break something in your neck and get up and finish the match. Doesn't mean that was a good idea for you to do that. And where is Starks lately?
He's on commentary on Rampage.
Well,
is he hurt? Is that why we're not getting Starks Punk?
Remember, he came back and had one match, was it? Did an angle or two?
Brian Cage match, but it may have been more than the Brian Cage match. I just don't remember. He came back and he won the FTW title.
Yeah, he hasn't wrestled much since the incident. So I don't know whether he's having worse problems in what they've said or not, but that was just completely preventable. And by the way, I'd just like to say, for all those people that want to close the Mexican border and not let the Mexican people into our country, I am sitting looking out my window at a crew of 4 Hispanic gentlemen who have framed an entire 25 by 55 2-story garage that my neighbor is putting up on his property. And now there's one guy up on the roof with a nail gun looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger, just fucking nailing shit right and left, and another guy by himself hauling a 24-foot extension ladder up onto the other side of the thing and climbing up it himself like he's trying to get loose from Alcatraz. And meanwhile, I had a white American landscaper over here last week to do me some mulch beds, and he said, I can't possibly get a shovel out here till next spring. And these guys are trying to escape from Devil's Island. If they were they could build a skyscraper in a week and a half, just the 4 of them. So I think we need to have more fine Mexican gentlemen in the workforce and less of these lazy white people. Go ahead.
For the record, go ahead. For the record, you have no idea if they're Mexican. They could be from anywhere in Latin America.
I can hear them screaming in Spanish at each other.
That means nothing. They could be from Uruguay or Paraguay.
Well,
or Colombia.
They ain't from fucking Cleveland, I'll tell you that. But wherever they can work their ass off, though.
All right. Well, speaking of work their ass off, did anyone, I don't remember what was next after the neck injury.
Well, nobody that could work their ass off, because here came Dan Lambert, Scorpio Sky, and the other page. I shouldn't say that. Sky's a good worker. He's just lost in here. The other page was dressed as a bigger douchebag than the Hardley Boys. Did you notice, especially the shoes with the no socks and everything?
They've kind of been dressing like the same as the Young Bucks in a lot of ways, except that because they look like athletes, they look a little different than guys who look like the Young Bucks dressing like that. It is interesting when you compare the 2 outfits and how you perceive the 2 different groups wearing it.
Yeah, the douchebaggery is evident in all of them to me. I fast forwarded the first part of this because the other page was doing all the talking and he talked forever. And I'm not going to stomach him. But Sammy Guevara came out and he can talk and he just rattled it right off. And Sammy basically told the other page that he hadn't gotten any farther because he's the only person in the company who gives a shit about what he does is him, basically, himself. And then he had to call Dan Lambert the fat-faced dipshit. Again, one of your top baby faces' whole gimmick revolves around cowboy shit. So there should be a moratorium on anybody else being allowed to use the word shit on television. But since Jericho basically, his life force is sustained by people chanting cheap shit that he can get them to chant. So he started fat-faced dipshit. And since he wasn't there, another member of his group has to carry it on. But anyway, this is, again, help me out with this. Last week, I said they had a confrontation. There was a challenge for a 10-man tag team match between Lambert's guys and the Dinner Circle. But it wasn't really asked or answered. And Lambert said he was going to have some conditions. And it got confusing. And we said, what exactly did they challenge for? Well, we're going to find out next week. I'm not sure I still know. And several people had a swing at trying to explain this. So Sammy, or Lambert gave the stipulations that he wants. A 10-man tag at Full Gear, Dinner Circle versus American Top Team. But there's extra stipulations. If Sammy puts the TNT title up against the other page next week, they can get the 10-man tag. But if Sammy loses next week, he will leave the Dinner Circle as well as lose the title. So then I guess he wouldn't be involved in the 10-man tag. But then, and Sammy then said, so what you're saying is, and he tried to repeat it. That used to be my code. Whenever in OVW or Ring of Honor, I was conducting an interview as an announcer, and one of the guys botched the stipulations, I would say, so what you're saying is, and I would repeat it properly. Well, Sammy repeated it, but he accepted, but then said, but if he wins, then he gets to pick 3 members of America's Top Team to go along, I guess, with, because at first I thought, wait, a 10-man tag with 3 members, and then it's 3 extra ones in addition to Paige and Sky. Right?
I guess, yeah.
And then the heels ran down to beat up Sammy, but here comes Santana and Ortiz and Jake Hager, and they ran the heels out. And it was long and not particularly gripping. And even Lambert was off from his usual boisterousness in this one. So what'd you think? I don't know.
I've hated everything with Lambert and AEW so far. I just think it's all been lame. It isn't good. And then you throw Jericho in there and it takes it to a whole nother level of suck. So I'm not really interested. And I know what you feel about Ethan Page. To me, Scorpio Sky's the blandest guy on the roster. He's just bland. He's all right in the ring. He's been a tag team champion. You wouldn't know it. He's bland. I don't see too much with him. Like you said, who else? It's going to be obviously Junior Dos Santos, you would think. And who? Who else will be in there? I'm not digging this feud at all. And I kind of just
And by the way, if we see Junior Dos Santos one more time until they get him if he wants to spend the time to get in a brief program to where he can apply his shooting skills in some type of believable fashion without trying to do pro wrestling that he's very green and awkward at, then if we see that again, then we've seen Junior Dos Santos. Will you ever be able to do much with him after that if they keep seeing that he's obviously working when he's in the ring?
I don't know. Look, the hardcore AEW fan will love it because they love everything. And they'll love chanting Jericho's song while he very, very slowly looks at them and smiles, listening to them sing his words back to him. But beyond, and whatever you said earlier was brilliant because Jericho is all about the cheap pop. And I get that's his thing, but it ain't my thing. And it's just so much lame stuff always. And this whole feud has been lame. Jericho's lame. I want it all to end. And I can't wait to see what he's going to be when he's done being Biker Jericho, whatever the fuck he is now. What's the next iteration of Chris Jericho?
I want to see James Lipton Jericho. When he gets just a little bit older, he just sits in a chair in the middle of the ring and talks to the other guys and asks them probing questions.
Oh, I don't want, no. The less Chris Jericho interviewing people, the better. Please.
All right, well, next up, again, last week, Adam Page came out and cut an incredible promo and looked like a main event star and sounded like a main event star for the first time in 2 years since he's been hanging out with job guys and a sad, depressed drunk and morose and undependable and driving, kids to ice cream on lawnmowers and all that stuff. And we said, where has this guy been? He could do this all this time and they didn't let him? Guess what he did this week? He's in the back with the dork order, walking in with a beer in his hand and apologizing to him for not being a good friend or whatever the fuck it is that allegedly in this goofy story he's let them down in some way. And then he brings up the next week is Halloween, and boy, hopefully they'll have some good costumes, and then he leaves, and they're all muttering about the costumes they're going to have next week, so there'll be more comedy next week. And some people actually got on the goddamn internet after I praised to the heavens his main event promo last week and said, well, Cornette, you don't understand the story. He couldn't have done this interview Unless he had done all these things, he'd lost his confidence and drifted aimlessly and did. They've missed the whole point. The whole point was it was long-term booking, all right. It was just long-term booking that was phony and silly and involving people that couldn't perform well and or carry off their part of it, and it was involving people that nobody gives a shit about anyway. Not that all that didn't make sense in the end, but that he shouldn't have been doing it with he shouldn't have been a sad, morose drunk. I don't see how that gets anybody over. But you can't honestly tell me that these people think that this has been some kind of grand, multi-layered, long-running angle to get this guy over as a main event superstar when he's been hanging around with a bunch of idiots, obviously phony drinking, and doing stupid shit like riding him around on his lawnmower to get ice cream. None of that was necessary for this story. They've just been amusing themselves because they think that they're all funny. So now he's back to, here the job guys are, and now they're going to wear costumes next week. And he's back to drinking beer. You know, I don't know that anybody in the world drank more beer at one time than Bobby Eaton or Buddy Landell. I never saw either one of them do it on television. Anyway, then Jungle Boy. Oh, God damn it. Jungle Boy, who's a legitimate talent. Great baby face, as long as he doesn't have to talk. They put him in a match with Brandon Cutlet so that he can beat up Brandon Cutlet in a minute or less. And Cutlet's in his blue jumpsuit with his fucking stupid gimmick on. And they do the joke match, and then Cutlet lays there in the ring doing comedy about how hurt he is. Oh. While Jungle Boy actually gets on the microphone and challenges any of the elite pieces of shit. There's another shit. And they won't come out. So then Jungle Boy puts the snare trap on Brandon Cutlet so that he can funny sell some more, so that Adam Cole can come out and do a pretty good promo. But again, they've ruined Cole. Cole comes to the ring and Jungle Boy nails him off the apron, and there's the Hardley Boys suddenly from behind, and they glom Jungle Boy, and they all take him to the stage. And the Hardley Boys give him the pissy little knee lifts. And then they did something that I've never seen before in wrestling ever. They took the guy and threw him off the stage onto tables covered with black sheets. Oh my God, the humanity. They've ruined Adam Cole now. Why put your baby face in a joke match against this fucking clown if he's just going to fucking make it funny and ruin the whole point? They're trying to be serious. They've commit attempted murder on this guy, but the segment started with him beating up a comedy figure who wasn't even taking it seriously. So there was that. What'd you think?
Not too much to say. I like Jungle Boy. Glad it was quick. But then everything afterwards. Cole, I thought about it during the promo, and I've said it to you for a while. Omega, I don't mind. And then Cole's next to him. Cole looks like a star. Cole's here, he looks like a star. And then you put him with the Young Bucks, it drags him down. This didn't do it for me. And quite frankly, it's not that I'm against crash pads or anything. But when you do it so frequently, it really defeats the purpose. And we're seeing it all the fucking time. And it's both shows. It's not just AEW. But it doesn't. Someone getting thrown off a stage doesn't mean anything to me anymore. He'll be back. He'll be back.
That's what I'm saying. It's like the stage dive. Who got thrown off at the Crown Jewel or at one of the shows, maybe SmackDown that we just watched? They dress the WWE dresses their crash pads up better than AEW does sometimes. But I wonder if some of the fans that go to these shows, if they ever go home going, shit, nobody got thrown off the stage tonight. What the fuck? Are they upset if that doesn't happen at every show?
Why hasn't any wrestling promoter started using a cannon yet? Like the circus does. I mean, it goes against everything I believe in with professional wrestling, but I think it would get a pop.
You know what? We could have done that in the 90s with Vader. Have you seen that clip?
Vader?
The old sideshow guy, the guy that they shoot the cannonball into the fucking guy's stomach and they show it in slow motion in black and white from the 30s or whatever. We could have done that with Vader.
I meant put the guy in the cannon and shoot him to the other side of the arena.
No, I want to see somebody get shot with a cannonball.
None of the strongmen ever did it. Where was Patera with a cannon? That would have worked.
Do you remember the same night that Jerry Lawler wrestled Andy Kaufman in Memphis? Lawler was double booked that night because they couldn't just have Lawler against Kaufman. They had to have Lawler advertised to actually wrestle a real match, right, to make it kind of legitimate.
Well, let me stop you right there, because a lot of fans probably don't realize that, and they probably think Andy Kaufman versus Jerry Lawler was the main event, and that was all Lawler did that night. Explain why what you just said made sense, why it wasn't the only match he did that night. It couldn't have been.
Well, it couldn't have been, but it was advertised as the main event in the newspaper, and that's all the attention was on it, but they didn't want people to, well, it wasn't supposed to be any kind of match for Lawler. There was no doubt that Lawler was going to rip Kaufman limb from limb and beat him in some fashion. That's what the people paid to see because they were mad at Kaufman. They wanted to see him beat up. But at the same time, to advertise the rest of the card, they advertised Lawler in a Southern title match against a guy named the Monk, who was a member of Jimmy Hart's first family, is the heel stable. Because that way, Lawler's wrestling an actual match on the card in defense of the Southern Heavyweight title. And that made it more legit. It's not like that Lawler's going to break a sweat on Kaufman, right? But he's got a real match, too.
With the Monk.
With the Monk. Well, of course, when they did the match, they locked up and Lawler backed him up into the ropes and drew back and hit him with one right hand and knocked him out. Boom, covered 1, 2, 3. And the people blew. They loved it. Yay! And Jimmy Hart pitched a fit. But the deal was the way they promoted the thing. The guy that was named the Monk, he was a younger guy. He was in his 20s. I don't know where he came from. And I don't know if he ever went anywhere else. But he was in a territory for several weeks, and he was a different kind of guy. I'm not sure he was all there. And he had a bald head and this really weird face, and he'd wear the monk robe, and he looked, and he was a big raw bone kid, as they used to say. But he told to promote this match, he told Jimmy Hart, I want you to hit me in the stomach with a baseball bat. What? Yeah, Jimmy Hart's going to be promoing the match, and he's going to show everybody how indestructible the Monk is. And the Monk had told him, yeah, I'm going to stand there. I want you to hit me in the stomach with the baseball bat. Don't worry, you won't hurt me, right? I can do this. God damn it. So Hart's cutting the promo, and the Monk's standing there. He spreads his robe out and everything. And Hart takes the baseball bat. And he said, look at this, Lawler. You can't hurt this guy. And he hit him in the stomach with the baseball bat. And the Monk, he didn't double over. But God, I've never seen a look of more misery on a human being's face. And you can see he's just trying not to fucking put it over. He's trying not to go. He's trying not to puke. And see Lawler, and Jimmy reared back almost like he was going to do it again. And the Monk kind of turns away. And he got back in the fucking locker room, and he and he took his fucking. I think he might have been wearing a tank top, or if he wasn't, he opened the robe or whatever, and there was an imprint of a baseball bat right across his fucking stomach. Yeah, all that to get knocked out in one punch. Anyway, speaking of getting knocked out in one punch, the main event was the long-awaited return grudge match between Cody Rhodes and Malachi Black. And I mean, we've said that Malachi Black is one of the guys that he's interesting. He's spooky. He's a grown man. His shit looks good. He's greenish in spots, and he had the the mind games thing he was playing for a while there made it odd. But that, this is a guy's been getting over. And every time that he and Cody come anywhere near each other, the people are cheering Malachi Black like he, just saved a baby from a burning building, and they're booing Cody out of the place, right? And it was the same during this match. But there were parts of this match that were very good, and parts of this match, I don't know what the fuck was going on. And I think it comes from, Cody can work, and Malachi Black can work pretty. He's got a different style, but they don't do too bad when they're working with each other. But they have to use so many smoke and mirrors and just it's overbooked in some cases. There was no Brandy here. That was a positive. Arn Anderson was ringside, but they started out hot. Cody started going for the figure four. For what I didn't know, they'd had a issue over the figure four, but he kept going for it a bunch. But it was quick-paced wrestling with just the heel being cheered and the babyface being booed. But then for their break spot, they did a deal where Malachi Black just goes out and pulls a chair out from under the ring and slides it in the ring, but Cody grabs it, and here comes Lee Johnson and Brock Anderson to the ring. So their break spot is, well, what's going to happen here? But the babyface has a chair and 3 seconds at ringside, and the heel's out there all by himself barehanded. So there's our breaks. Usually when you go to a break spot, shouldn't the babyface be in jeopardy? Oh my God, what's going to happen? But in this case, like, well, Malachi Black's going to get that shit kicked out of him by all these motherfuckers. Don't go away. Was that kind of the vibe you got?
Yeah, look, every Cody match is like a wrestling blender. It's a bunch of things that worked 30 years ago. You put them in a blender, and whatever order they come out in, just do it.
Well, anyway, apparently during the break, Cody Rhodes gave Malachi Black a crossroads off the apron through a table onto the floor.
During the break.
During the break. But at least they showed it when they came back. Well, during the break, here's what happened. And Cody took the worst of the bump. He gave the guy his move, which involves him flying off the apron of the ring and crashing back first through a table. And they didn't take the I don't know what you call it, but there is on some of these tables, there's a band around the table. It's sometimes they're plastic, sometimes they're some type of aluminum or metal or whatever, but there's a band around the edge of the table. And when they break, that thing just pops up. Well, Cody went through the table and the fucking band came right over the top of his face. And that, anyway, Cody took the worst of the bump in giving the other guy his finish off the apron of the ring, but that gave Malachi Black an excuse to get a little color. But then he shoved Cody into the post and he got color. And both of them sold laying around on the floor forever. So we started hot and at a quick pace. We slowed things down when we went to the break. Coming back from the break, we'd seen during the break, we had a big table bump, and now they're just kind of laying around bleeding. And suddenly, here comes Andre Olio down the aisleway. Help me try to remember, because there's so much of this. Why is Andre and his assistant mad at Cody?
Well, if you remember, you didn't watch the last match on Rampage was Pac, as he's otherwise known, versus Andrade.
Yeah.
And Malachi came out, leading to Cody coming out through the crowd. From everything I know, that was the introduction of all these characters into this feud.
But wait a minute. Why did Malachi come out with Andre versus Pac? Whose side was Malachi on?
At first, they teased you didn't know, and then he was on Andrade's side. It was all a plot from Andrade, his former WWE cohort, to attack Pac, who, I don't know if he was one of their cohorts. He may have left before they got there.
Oh, boy. So anyway, Andre comes down the aisle, but his assistant is in the ring and and Arn's standing in the ring, because now that since the guys in the match are laying on the floor bleeding, so Arn Anderson is in the ring. But then Andre comes down the aisle, but then Andre's assistant is in the ring and tries to hit Arn with the laptop, but Arn spinebusters him and pops up to his feet, and Malachi Black is in the ring and blows the mist in Arn's face. But for one thing, he missed Arn's eyes, and he got the top of Arn's head, so it looked like Arn had a hairdo from Earl Scheib.
Yeah, it wasn't his face at all.
There was no black anywhere around his eyes. But the referee is standing there on the floor watching everything that's going on. Was this a no disqualification match? Was this a street fight? Was that what? There are just people that have come in. Nobody in the match is in the ring. Everybody that's in the ring doing shit is not even involved in the match. And then the mist misses. The mist missed. And then Pac attacks Andre and fights him off. They fight off, Brian. And then Cody and Malachi Black get back in the ring and they start having the match again. And then Malachi Black hit a very pretty moonsault body block. He ran to the ropes, jumped up on the second rope, did the moonsault. Cody standing on his feet, and Malachi Black took him right out of his boots and bam, and planted him right flat on the ring. And then Malachi Black pops up to his feet, and so does Cody Rhodes. After he just got planted with that moonsault body block, he popped right up and grabbed Malachi Black in the crossroads and hit that and got a 2 count. Okay, so we're just trading shit now without bothering to register the effects of it. And they continue having their match again after all this shit just happened in the middle. Now Cody Rhodes is kicking the shit out of Malachi Black and the fans are booing him. But suddenly Malachi Black comes off the top with a great double foot stomp. Holy shit, made Balor's look bad because this guy's fucking a lot heavier and he got higher.
That was the best foot stomp I've ever seen.
Yeah, and it looked safe too. Not that I want to be laying there to find out, but it was very well done. And then he hit a German suplex, got a 2 count. And then Malachi Black hits his spin kick, that kick that he's been knocking everybody out with, right? He's knocked them all. Their knees freeze and their liver quiver when he hits that kick. And Cody takes it and falls into the ropes, kind of over the middle rope, so he can't be pinned, right? Which was good. The guy just hit his finish, but Cody's in the ropes. But then, suddenly, when the referee backed Malachi Black up or whatever, Cody stood up and ran across the ring toward Malachi Black right after taking that kick. And Black backdrops him over the top, but Cody lands on his feet on the floor, so Black climbs up to the top rope and does a moonsault off the top rope to the floor, but Cody has slid into the ring. Black wouldn't have hit Cody. Cody slid in the ring before Black even took off, but Black lands on his feet, and then Cody hits a dive through the ropes, throws him back in the ring, and hits the Cody cutter off the ropes, plus a crossroads, plus a double arm pile driver, and then pinned him 1, 2, 3. So thanks for coming, Malachi Black. Remember what I talked about? Where was Malachi Black's out? Where was his bitch? Malachi Black hits his finish that's knocked everybody else goofy, and Cody sells it for 10 seconds, and then he's running again. They do this crazy sequence where they're just flipping and landing, and then Cody just hits basically 1, 2, 3, 4 big moves in a row and pins him flat in the middle. There is no question that Cody Rhodes beat Malachi Black. He just beat him. And the kids these days think that somehow made Malachi Black strong, because they'll say, well, look, it took a dive, and it took a Cody cutter, and it took a crossroads, and it took a double arm pile driver for you to beat him. So that made him look strong. No. It made it look like you took a fucking hammer and beat him into powder right in the middle of the ring with move after move and then beat him and then wiped your feet on him on the way out. When the babyface gets a Hail Mary move that stuns the fucking heel for the requisite 3 seconds to get a pin, that's great. When the babyface hits 4 uncontested finishes on a motherfucker and pins him, that guy just got beat. And then, after that, Arn was up talking to Cody. He had a towel. He was like he was dabbing his eye like he was crying. He was overcome with emotion. And he's up talking to Cody and toweling his face off. And then you could see more that the mist missed his face because there was no black around his eyes. But we just gave Malachi Black 4 big moves and pinned him flat in the middle after taking his finish kick and his fucking mist didn't even incapacitate a 60-year-old retired wrestler past having to towel his face off. I'm not scared of this guy anymore. Your thoughts?
Wow, where to begin? I was impressed with Malachi Black in the match. I thought he looked great. I thought the moonsault body press looked great. The kicks looked great. The German suplex looked great. The mist, he's either got to drop it or learn how to get someone near their face.
Yeah.
He's getting everyone on top of their head, unless it's sponsored by Keeps. I don't know how this is going to really help anyone. The problem is the finish was wrong. Whatever you want to say about the style, look, every Cody match is overbooked. Even the ones you love, there's way too much shit at ringside, way too much smoke and mirrors, because Cody can't just go in the ring and work a match. He can't do it. He has a block. He's a mental block. He can't do it. But the rejection of Cody by the AEW fans was a long time coming, and some of us saw it well before it came.
You called it.
And we'll talk about Rhodes to the Top in a little bit, but the idea that, especially with the reaction there, because Miami, you didn't see Rampage, it was taped, Cody got a pretty nice pop. I heard from people in the building that night, wow, the fans here cheered for Cody. And I said, no, it's Miami. They would have cheered for anything that night. I saw that show. The only thing they were going to boo was Dan Lambert. They were going to cheer everything else. And I was right, because Cody got booed out of Orlando brutally. Thank God Brandy wasn't there. It would have been really bad then. But what do you do now with Cody? Because they've tried to do this reclamation project. The fans aren't taking to him. It's either public posturing, where he's saying publicly that he doesn't want to turn heel, beyond the reality show and other interviews, that he can never do that. He can never turn his back on the fans, which, I mean, give me a break.
Well,
it's either that or there's a major tone-deaf problem right now where Cody is trying to force himself down everyone's throat, a la Jeff Jarrett, a la Triple H at their worst, in a way that no one wants him to be right now. And unless you embrace it, I think it works if you fully embrace it. Heel Cody, break the stipulation, give him the world title. Brandy gets to be the heel that she wants to be. If you keep Arn around, Arn's more effective as a fucking heel than just a friendly old coach. It all makes sense, but if they're fighting it and it looks like they're having a real difficult time accepting the reality, there's a problem, and this finish was a problem.
Well, and honestly, it would be brilliant if his constant statements everywhere about I'm not going to turn heel are the beginning of his heel turn. Of course, I don't like somebody coming out and saying, well, I'm not going to turn heel, because then that obviously says, oh, I do fake shit. And I just, it's not really me. It's just how I decide to act. Do I want people to like me or not? So it's more fake wrestling bullshit when you say, I don't want to turn heel. But if his heel turn begins by him saying, I'm not going to turn heel, and then he just claims I haven't turned heel, you people have, or something like that, it might be interesting. But yes, Malachi Black has beaten him, twice now?
Yeah.
So yes, you can't beat the babyface all the time, and the babyface does need to get some rebuttal or whatever, but this is beginning to be a pattern, as we've talked about it. somebody comes in, Cody puts him over strong, gets wiped out, carried out, goes off and shoots a reality show or a game show and comes back and gets even. And this time he got beat twice and then came back and got even. But I don't know if it was time for Malachi Black to have gotten even with, or to get even with Malachi Black at this point. He's still new, and they know what they've got with Cody. And part of the reason I think he's got the heat is because he keeps leaving and going to do other TV shows. Because, I mean, the wrestling fans 30 years ago and the wrestling fans today maybe only have one thing in common, and that's that they don't like the wrestlers that they think don't want to be in the wrestling business and are trying to do other shit. That's, and
it's bigger than that with Cody.
Well, it's bigger than that with Cody, but I'm saying that's the only thing that the two sets of fans from years ago and now maybe have in common, is that they all would have felt that way at any point in time.